He said he just needed a place to crash. I didn't expect him to crawl into my bed. When Mike texted me that night, "Bro, can I crash at your place? Shit's bad at home." I didn't think twice. Mike and I had been friends since college. He was one of those guys who just made you feel comfortable the second he walked into a room. All easy smiles, messy blonde hair, and this natural, cocky charm that somehow wasn't annoying at all. We'd never hooked up, never even flirted seriously. Mike was straight, or at least that's what he always claimed. And me, well, I knew better than to catch feelings for a guy like him. Still, didn't stop a few late-night thoughts I kept firmly locked away. So when he showed up at my door around midnight, duffel bag over his shoulder, wearing ripped jeans and an old hoodie, I let him in without asking questions. "Thanks, man," he muttered, voice rough and tired, not meeting my eyes. "You're saving my ass." "Yeah, no worries," I said, stepping aside. "You want a beer?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, fuck it." I grabbed 2 from the fridge and tossed one over. He caught it with one hand, dropping heavily onto the couch with a sigh that seemed to sag his whole body down. Mike usually carried himself like he had the world. Tonight, he just looked wrecked, and I couldn't help but notice how different that made him seem. We didn't talk much, just drank our beers, half-watched some dumb action movie, let the night stretch out between us. Eventually, Mike yawned, stretching out across the couch, his hoodie hiking up just enough to flash a strip of tan skin and a hint of abs. I pretended not to notice. "You sure it's cool if I crash here?" he asked, voice low and scratchy. "Dude, yeah," I said. "Couch is all yours." Mike flashed a tired half smile and nodded. That was that. I headed to bed sometime after 2 a.m., leaving him sprawled out in front of the TV. Or so I thought. I must have only been out for an hour or two, when something woke me. A shift in the air, a quiet creak of the door. Before I could even open my eyes properly, I felt the mattress dip beside me, and then a warm body slid into bed. "What the hell?" I croaked, my heart hammering. "Chill," Mike mumbled, voice sleepy and thick. "Couch sucked. Just staying here." His arm bumped against mine under the covers. He was way closer than he needed to be, and not wearing that hoodie anymore, just a lot of warm, bare skin brushing mine. I swallowed hard. "You good, man?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. "Yeah," he breathed. But he shifted even closer, so close now that I could feel the steady heat of him, the steady thump of his heart against my side. And then I felt it, a slow, unmistakable grind against my hip, tentative at first, like he wasn't even sure he was doing it. I went completely still. Mike, straight, life of the party Mike, grinding against me? Before I could process it, his hand found my stomach under the blanket. Just a brush at first, testing the waters. But it was enough to make my skin prickle and my whole body come alive in a way I hadn't expected. "Mike," I whispered. "Don't," he muttered against my ear. "Just let me." His voice cracked at the end, and in that moment, something inside me broke too. All the years of pretending, of hiding what I wanted. I didn't pull away. I didn't say a word. Instead, I shifted just a little, just enough, and Mike took it from there, his hand sliding lower, fingers trembling slightly but determined. The air between us turned thick, electric, the kind of moment you know is going to change everything. I laid there, barely breathing, while Mike's hand hovered, almost trembling, just under the hem of my t-shirt. He didn't push it, didn't rush. He was waiting. Waiting for me to tell him to stop, or maybe waiting for me to give him permission. Instead, I turned my head slightly, just enough to catch the faint outline of his face in the dark. His eyes were open, locked on mine, searching, desperate in a way I'd never seen before. There was no cocky grin, no drunken laughter, no jokes to hide behind. Just Mike, raw and unsure. "You sure about this?" I whispered. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Then his forehead bumped lightly against my shoulder, like he couldn't look at me anymore, like he was scared I'd shove him away. I didn't. Instead, I slid my hand under the blanket and found his. The second our fingers touched, he laced his through mine so tightly it almost hurt. We lay there like that for what felt like forever, hearts hammering, breathing uneven, heat building between us in slow, heavy waves. I could feel him, the tension in his muscles, the way his chest rose and fell a little too fast, the subtle tremor in his fingers as he squeezed my hand. And lower, I could feel the unmistakable evidence of what this was doing to him. And, if I was being honest, to me too. Mike shifted again, almost like he couldn't help himself, the soft press of his body sending a shiver through me. I could smell the faint scent of his skin, soap and something that was just purely him. It made my head swim. Still gripping my hand, he let out a shaky breath against my neck. "You ever think about this?" he murmured, voice rough, almost broken. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "Yeah," I admitted, because lying seemed stupid now. "More than I should have." He gave a soft, breathless laugh. Not mocking, but almost like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Like maybe he wasn't alone in this after all. For a second, it felt like the whole world narrowed down to just us. The dim glow from the window, the warmth of the blankets, the thundering pulse of blood in my ears. Mike shifted his hand, fingers skating lightly along the side of my ribcage under my shirt, making my skin erupt in goosebumps. I caught his wrist gently, slowing him down. "Not if you're gonna wake up tomorrow and hate me for it," I said quietly. He froze. His body tensed against mine, and for a moment, I thought maybe he was about to bolt. Instead, he pressed his forehead tighter into my shoulder, breathing me in like he needed it to stay standing. "I'm not drunk," he said finally, voice muffled but certain. "I'm not confused. I just don't want to be alone tonight." The way he said it, so raw, so real, it knocked the air out of me. And maybe I should have been more cautious. Should have thought about how complicated this could get. But right then, in that small, dark room, it felt like the only thing that mattered was the way Mike was holding onto me, like he was afraid I'd slip away if he let go. Slowly, I shifted, turning toward him. He lifted his head, and for the first time, our faces were just inches apart. I could see every tiny detail, the way his lashes fluttered against his cheeks, the tiny crease between his brows, the way his lips parted slightly, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. He didn't have to. I leaned in first, slow, giving him every chance to back away. He didn't. When our lips finally met, it was like the world stopped spinning. There was no hesitation, no awkward fumbling, just this intense, dizzying rush of heat and longing that made my knees go weak even though I was already lying down. Mike kissed me like he had something to prove, like he had been wanting this just as badly, for just as long, but hadn't known how to ask for it until now. His hand slid up into my hair, gripping tight, anchoring himself to me. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew, whatever happened after tonight, whatever it meant, nothing between us would ever be the same again. Mike kissed like he couldn't get enough. There was no awkwardness, no pulling back, just this steady pressure, deeper and deeper, like he was trying to pour every unspoken thing he couldn't say into it. His hand stayed tangled in my hair, the other gripping the side of my shirt like he needed something to hold on to. I kissed him back, just as fiercely, the weight of years of hidden feelings finally breaking free. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. Like we'd been heading toward this moment since the day we met, and just hadn't realized it until now. When we finally pulled apart, breathing hard, Mike didn't say anything right away. He just rested his forehead against mine, his thumb brushing lightly along my jawline. The tiny, absent-minded touch almost undid me, more than the kiss had. "You're shaking," he whispered, his voice rough. "You're the one breaking into my bed." I teased back, but my voice was low, breathless, and shaky too. He gave this tiny laugh, the kind you give when you're terrified, but relieved at the same time. Then he shifted again, his thigh pressing against mine under the covers. His body heat was overwhelming, his skin hot against mine even through the thin fabric of my shorts. Mike's hand slid down from my hair, trailing slow, deliberate paths over my shoulder, my arm, down my side. His fingers lingered there, hesitating at the waistband of my boxers. He looked up at me then, really looked, searching my face for any hint of doubt. I gave him the smallest nod, not rushed, not forced, just ready. And that's all it took. Mike pressed closer, his chest flush against mine, his mouth finding my neck this time, his breathing heavy and uneven. The brush of his lips against my skin sent a jolt of heat straight through me, and without thinking, I grabbed the back of his neck, pulling him even closer. He groaned, a deep, low sound that I felt in every nerve ending. He rocked against me, slow and deliberate, the friction almost too much and not nearly enough at the same time. The room around us disappeared. The only thing I could feel was Mike, his hands on me, his body against mine, the desperate way he clung to me like he was terrified this moment would vanish if he let go. Somewhere between kisses and tangled limbs, our legs got all mixed up, blankets shoved halfway down the bed. I could feel the muscles in his back flex under my hands, the slight tremor in his body matching my own. Mike's mouth found mine again, hungrier now, his hands roaming more boldly, exploring every inch he could reach without ever crossing the invisible line we both somehow knew not to cross. Not yet. It was frantic and careful all at once, like we were both starving but terrified of breaking the moment by pushing too far too fast. Eventually, he pulled back slightly, his forehead pressed against my chest, his breathing ragged. "Is this okay?" he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. I tightened my arms around him, running my fingers slowly up and down his spine. "Yeah," I said softly. "It's more than okay." For a few minutes, we just stayed like that, wrapped up in each other, hearts racing, bodies pressed so close there was no telling where one of us ended and the other began. The air in the room was thick with heat and tension, and something that felt dangerously close to something bigger, something we both knew wasn't just about tonight. Mike shifted, resting his chin lightly on my chest, looking up at me through half-lidded eyes. "Promise me something," he said, voice hoarse. "What?" He hesitated for a beat, then said, "Don't act like this didn't happen tomorrow." The words hit me harder than I expected. Because he wasn't talking about guilt or regret. He was talking about the fear that I'd pretend tonight was a mistake, just to make it easier for both of us. I cupped his jaw gently, brushing my thumb over the stubble on his cheek. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. He closed his eyes for a second, like he needed to soak those words in. And when he opened them again, there was a softness there. Something open and unguarded that Mike had never shown anyone else before. At least, not to me. And definitely not like this. Mike shifted up just enough to kiss me again, slower this time. No rush, no urgency. Just this steady, burning need that simmered under every touch. The way his hand traced my side, the way his mouth moved against mine like he was memorizing me, it was different now. It wasn't about the heat anymore or the adrenaline. It was something quieter, deeper. He pulled back just a little, his nose brushing mine. "I should have done this a long time ago," he whispered. I let out a shaky breath, my fingers threading through the hair at the back of his head. "Yeah," I said, half laughing, half breathless. "You're late." Mike chuckled against my skin, but it faded quickly. He ducked his head, pressing soft kisses along my jaw, down my neck, his hand resting low on my waist like he was grounding himself. The warmth of his mouth against my skin made it hard to think, harder to breathe. Every little movement, every tiny brush of lips and fingertips sent waves of heat through my whole body. I shifted slightly, rolling him under me, pinning him to the mattress with my weight. His eyes widened, just a little, surprised, but not scared. And then he grinned. A slow, crooked, completely devastating grin that made my heart do something stupid in my chest. "You sure you know what you're doing?" he teased, voice low and a little rough around the edges. I leaned down, my forehead brushing his. "Pretty sure," I said. "But you're welcome to correct me." Mike laughed, the sound muffled between us, and for a second it felt almost normal. Two friends messing around like it was just some dumb game we fell into. Except it wasn't. Not even close. I kissed him again. Slow and deep. And his arms wrapped tight around my waist, pulling me flush against him. I could feel everything. The way he arched into me without thinking. The way his hands roamed my back like he couldn't decide where to touch first. His body told a story his mouth wasn't brave enough to say yet, and I wasn't about to rush him. I shifted just enough to kiss along his collarbone, my fingers tracing slow, lazy patterns on his ribs. Mike gasped quietly, his body tensing under mine. "Sensitive?" I murmured against his skin. "Shut up," he groaned, trying to squirm away, but not really trying that hard. I grinned and kept going, feeling out every little spot that made him shiver, made him grip my arms tighter, made soft, broken sounds fall from his lips before he could catch them. He was so real like this, stripped down, literally and figuratively. No front, no walls, just Mike, needing me, and needing this. After a while, he grabbed my face and pulled me back up to kiss him hard like he couldn't take the teasing anymore. I kissed him back just as hard, pouring everything I was feeling into it. The relief, the disbelief, the way my whole chest ached with how badly I wanted him. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing like we'd run a marathon, Mike's hand stayed on me, grounding himself, keeping me close. "Stay," he whispered, voice wrecked. "Please." I wasn't going anywhere. Not tonight. Not after this. I brushed his hair back from his forehead, feeling the heat radiating off his skin, the way his whole body seemed to hum under my touch. "I'm not leaving," I said, kissing the corner of his mouth. "Not now. Not ever, if you don't want me to." Mike's whole body shuddered, a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob breaking free from his throat. He pulled me down into him again, wrapping his arms around me like he could physically anchor me to his chest. For a long time, we didn't talk. We just laid there, tangled together under the covers, skin against skin, hearts pounding in sync. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't confusing. It was simple. It was real. It was everything I'd been afraid to hope for, and somehow, impossibly, it was happening. The morning light cut through the blinds, slicing thin beams across the room. I blinked awake slowly, my brain foggy from the barely there sleep, from everything that had happened. For a second, I forgot where I was, forgot who was wrapped around me. Then I shifted slightly, and Mike stirred too, his arm tightening instinctively around my waist, pulling me back against him. I froze, not because I wanted to pull away, but because the reality of it all hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a dream. It wasn't some drunken mistake we could laugh off. Mike was here, in my bed, his skin warm against mine, his breathing soft, and even against the back of my neck. And now, what the hell were we supposed to do? I shifted a little, trying not to wake him, but he made this low, half-asleep noise and nuzzled closer. "Stay," he muttered, voice rough and sleepy. I smiled a little despite myself. God, he didn't even know what he was doing to me. I lay there for a while longer, letting the moment stretch out, afraid that moving too fast would break it. But eventually, nature called, and I had to peel myself away carefully. Mike grumbled something unintelligible as I slipped out from under the covers. I pulled on some sweatpants and a t-shirt and padded quietly out of the bedroom toward the kitchen, heart hammering. I needed coffee. And maybe divine intervention. As the coffee machine sputtered to life, I leaned against the counter, rubbing my face. What if he regretted it? What if he acted like nothing happened? What if he couldn't even look me in the eye? The anxiety gnawed at me, making my stomach twist into knots. I was so lost in my head I didn't even hear him come in. "Hey," Mike said, his voice low and hoarse. I turned. He stood there barefoot, in nothing but his jeans from the night before, his blonde hair sticking up in messy tufts, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He looked ridiculously good and completely, terrifyingly vulnerable. "Hey," I said back, trying to sound normal. For a beat, we just stared at each other. Neither of us said anything. The silence stretched and stretched until Mike crossed the room, grabbed a mug off the shelf like he'd lived here forever, and poured himself coffee. He took a sip, winced at how hot it was, and then leaned back against the counter, studying me over the rim of his mug. "So?" he said finally. His voice was careful. "Testing." "So," I echoed, my heart pounding. Mike ran a hand through his hair, his mouth twitching in a half smile. "You're not gonna kick me out, right?" I blinked. "What?" "No, of course not." He let out a breath like he'd been holding it in. "Good," he said, "because, I was kinda hoping last night wasn't just, like, a thing." I stared at him. "You mean you don't think it was just heat of the moment?" Mike flushed, looking suddenly, painfully shy. "I mean, it was kinda heat of the moment," he said, giving a nervous laugh. "But it wasn't just that for me, not even close." My chest squeezed so tight I could barely breathe. "Same," I managed. Mike relaxed a little at that, his whole posture softening. He set his mug down, shoved his hands into his back pockets, and rocked on his heels like he was trying to work up the nerve to say something. "I don't know what this means," he said finally. "I don't know what I'm doing. I know I don't want last night to be a one-time thing." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it clear as day. The fear, the hope, the absolute, messy realness of it all. I crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed him. It wasn't frantic this time. It wasn't desperate. It was slow, certain, an answer to every unspoken question between us. When I pulled back, I pressed my forehead against his and smiled. "Then don't let it be," I said softly. Mike let out a breathless laugh, relief flooding his features. "God," he said, shaking his head. "I'm so screwed." I laughed too. "Yeah," I said, "me too." But somehow, it didn't feel scary anymore. It felt right. The first few days after that night were weird. Not bad weird. Good weird. New weird. Mike didn't avoid me. He didn't pretend nothing happened. If anything, he stuck closer, brushing his hand against mine when we passed in the hallway, stealing kisses when we thought no one would notice, texting me dumb stuff even when we were just a room apart. It was new, yeah, but it was good. It felt easy. Until the world outside our little bubble started creeping back in. It happened at a party the following weekend. One of our mutual friends, Jordan, had a birthday, and he basically guilt-tripped both of us into showing up. We figured we could handle a few hours of pretending everything was normal. We were wrong. The party was packed, the music too loud, the lights too dim. I stuck close to Mike at first, instinctively, but we got pulled apart fast. Different people wanting to catch up, dragging us into different conversations. I was standing by the kitchen, laughing with some people I barely knew, when this guy the first didn't recognize slid up next to me. Tall, dark hair, easy grin. "Hey," he said, flashing me a smile. "I haven't seen you around before." I smiled politely. "Yeah, I usually avoid big crowds." He laughed, stepping a little closer. "Shame. You're pretty hard to miss." I raised an eyebrow, caught a little off guard by the blatant flirting. Before I could even figure out how to respond, I felt a hand slide onto my lower back. Firm, possessive. I turned. Mike stood there, expression casual, but his hand said otherwise. The way his fingers curled into my shirt, the slight tension in his jaw. He wasn't playing. "Hey man," Mike said to the guy, his voice friendly but cool. "You mind? We were just about to grab a drink." The guy blinked, gave a half smirk, and backed off without a fight. Once he was gone, Mike didn't move his hand from my back. Instead, he leaned in close, his mouth near my ear. "I didn't like the way he was looking at you," he muttered. My heart thudded stupidly hard in my chest. Jealous much? I teased. Mike shrugged, but his fingers tightened slightly on my waist. Yeah, he said, blunt, no shame at all. I am. I turned toward him, catching his eyes in the low light. There was no joking in them, just this raw honesty that punched straight through me. I leaned in, our foreheads brushing. Good, I said quietly. Means you care. He smiled, a real, slow smile that made my knees weak, and kissed me. Right there, in the middle of a crowded kitchen at a random house party. It wasn't a full makeout session, just a soft, lingering kiss. But it was enough. Enough to make my head spin. Enough to make me forget anyone else was even there. When we finally pulled apart, Mike looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. Let's get out of here, he said. I didn't even hesitate. We slipped out without saying goodbye, laughing as we jogged down the street toward my car, the cool night air wrapping around us. Mike grabbed my hand halfway there, lacing our fingers together like it was the most natural thing in the world. And for the first time, I realized something. Whatever this was between us, whatever we were figuring out, it wasn't just a phase, it wasn't a mistake, it was real. It was messy and new and terrifying and exhilarating, but it was real. And it was ours. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the windows. Too bright, too real. Mike was sprawled across my bed, one arm tossed carelessly over his face to block the light, the other resting lazily across my stomach, like he had every right to be there, like he belonged there. And honestly, he did. I watched him for a few minutes, not moving, just taking him in. The messy blonde hair, the scruff along his jaw, the way he looked so at peace. It felt unreal. Like if I blinked too hard, he'd vanish, and I'd wake up alone. Finally, he stirred, groaning a little as he stretched. Morning, I said softly. He peeled his arm off his face and blinked at me, squinting against the light. Morning, he rasped back, voice rough with sleep. For a beat, we just lay there, staring at each other. No rush, no pressure. But eventually, the weight of everything we hadn't said yet settled between us. Mike propped himself up on one elbow, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing patterns on my stomach. I should probably explain, he said. You don't have to, I said quickly. You don't owe me. I want to, he cut in. He took a breath, his gaze dropping to where his fingers moved against my skin. I guess I've been thinking about you for a while now, he admitted. Way longer than I should have. My chest tightened. I just didn't know what to do with it, he continued. I mean, you were you, my best friend. The one person who actually gave a damn about me without wanting something in return. He paused, his fingers stilling. I was scared of screwing it up, he said. Scared you didn't feel the same. Scared that even if you did, everything would get weird and messy and... He broke off, shaking his head like he couldn't get the words right. I reached up, catching his hand in mine. It's already messy, I said, smiling a little. But it's worth it. Mike looked at me then, really looked, and something shifted in his eyes. Something soft and unguarded. I don't want to mess this up, he said quietly. You're not, I promised. You're just... finally being honest. He laughed under his breath, the sound a little shaky. I suck at this, he muttered. I squeezed his hand. Yeah, I said, grinning. But lucky for you, I'm pretty good at handling you. Mike snorted and shoved me lightly, but his eyes were shining. We stayed like that for a while, talking, teasing, trading lazy kisses between coffee refills and bad reality TV in the background. It wasn't some huge dramatic moment. It wasn't fireworks or sweeping declarations. It was real, simple, ours. Later that afternoon, we ended up on the couch, half watching some cooking competition show while Mike tried and failed not to fall asleep on my shoulder. You know, he mumbled, eyes closed. We're gonna have to tell people eventually, I smirked. Yeah? You ready for that? He cracked one eye open and looked at me. And for the first time, I didn't see hesitation. Just peace. I don't care what anyone thinks, he said simply. "As long as you're next to me." My heart damn near exploded. I leaned down and kissed his forehead, feeling him smile against my chest. "Deal," I whispered, and somehow, against all odds, all fears, all the rules we thought we had to follow, we found something real, something messy, something imperfect, something perfect, and we weren't letting it go.